in October, there was another conference called Thinking Its Presence in Tucson. And it's great. It was about like race and writing and art. And it was also really heavy this year because last year the conference was before the election and this one was after the election, right? And so when you're talking about race and art and everything, I think a lot of people really had a lot of trauma and pain that they had to share. So there were a lot of really heavy workshops. And a few of us, it was kind of perfect timing that we had, or not only perfect timing, but perfect planning, that we put together a workshop on self-care and kind of community self-care. And so some of this comes out of that and been thinking in those terms. But also, it's kind of got my own twist on it. So I think one of the, I see why you were sitting over on the other side. Now I remember people are walking in the door. But we're streaming, so hopefully there are folks there. Hello, I'll interact with you a little bit here and there. So I kind of kept that in mind. So one of the things that we did for our proposal when we did that conference was we drew upon a fairly, I think a lot of people in this room have probably heard this quote before. It is oft repeated and oft used, which is from Audre Lorde: "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation." And that is an act of political warfare. So I really think about, I know my own self-care, my own practices, and even just the struggles that I deal with it are really political. And even just like being able to engage in it and having the time and having the space and the ability and the, I guess, kind of agency to do so is a political act. So Stephanie right here, we work at the same place. Our day job is in the same place. And so one of the little acts of self-care I think that both of us do is we have lunch once a week together because we're writers, but we also, we do our work in our day job and everything. And a couple weeks ago I was expressing to her, we were both in separate meetings, and both of them had something to do with self-care, but mine, it was a professional development session, and they invited a speaker to talk about self-care, and I was so frustrated because this whole conversation around self-care really negated and erased the fact that what the kind of structural and what the context was for us in our jobs, right? You really need to take care of yourself here, but really a lot of our stress was because we were one person doing many people's jobs. That there were all these things, these factors that it was they were the ones creating the circumstance and the situation for which we needed the self-care. And so it was really frustrating to me to not recognize that we, these multiple layers of identities that we had, and then what the institution was doing to really help us. And instead it was them coming and saying to us, you really ought to take care of yourself. And so I think kind of my approach to this is really to think about in this room we're women and gender non-binary and trans folks, people who have various gender identities and various identities, intersectional identities, right? Whether we're people of color or we're queer or have disabilities, and so how those affect us in our ability to take care of ourselves, kind of within capitalism, which really is just here to take advantage of us in a lot of ways. So I like to think about on planes. That idea of, I think about this a lot with self-care, is to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help someone else. Because how are you going to help anyone else? I think not only is it thinking about helping others, but because we're here, we're writers, this is what we're here, and artists in various ways, it's also helping our writing, right? So we're not just thinking about the way we're helping people in our community, which I think a lot of us are doing. I think that's why even Women Who Submit exists. But it's also how are we nurturing that part of ourselves? And going back to kind of what I mentioned about capitalism is the fact that how many people here have many hustles? Writing is one of your hustles, right? It is so hard to be just a writer. Once upon a time, I remember I was talking about, it might have been with you, actually, that these writers in the 60s, they would just write a few articles and that would pay all their bills for the month. And it's really? That time existed, and it seems like a fairy tale now, and it's because it doesn't have this value to the market that no one wants to pay for it, and so it's just a part of what we do. And so being, I think the self-care aspect is just this, I think that's for me, like the politics behind it. So yeah, putting your oxygen mask on first before helping others. But I'm going to move to talking about soccer. I went too quick with that. And suddenly there's a picture of me playing soccer on here. So I promise this is going to come back to it pretty quickly. So why are we going to talk about soccer? Some folks here know that I play soccer. I did not grow up playing soccer. I am not a soccer player by nature. I actually played softball when I was growing up. Soccer was very intimidating to me because you had to run all the time. I was like, in softball, you run, you stop, and then you go, innings over. But I've had a chance over the last 4 years through soccer, to understand how to apply self-care and apply various principles related to it, like within the rest of my life. Part of how that came to happen was, at some point, I don't even know how it came up, maybe about 10 years ago, I realized that there were two places where I realized there were these places where I could be, that I could forget the world beyond, that I could forget my cares for even just a short time. It wasn't like it was completely forgetting it, like it didn't exist or it was denial, but it was like something that I didn't realize what finding was like these were like these self-care practices that I could take that would really kind of alleviate whatever my worries were at the moment. One of those places was a photography darkroom. Anyone ever been in a darkroom? Done some of that? Something like really soothing and awesome about like you're creating with your hands, you're dealing with the enlarger and your filters and the, figuring out how long you got to put your prints under there, and processing prints, and it was just something that I could like go in there, and even though the smell was kind of bad and everything, it's like really nice to like forget the world outside of that darkroom. The other thing was the softball field. I haven't had a chance to play too much softball in many years, but I think the idea is I'm a team sports kind of girl. So I'm not so good, like running is super boring to me because it's just like me by myself, and I know for a lot of people that's cool, but for me I really like the collaboration with people. And so the softball field was like I had to coordinate with other people. And I think that's kind of like the social and community-oriented person with me. But that was something I think I was seeking at the time. About 4 years ago, I had moved back to LA after grad school. I was in grad school in Riverside for my MFA. I had lived in the Bay Area before that, so it had been a while since I had lived in LA. And so a lot of my friends weren't here anymore. My dad had passed away while I was in grad school, so it was still like dealing with that grief, and then also the grief at the end of a relationship. So I was like, what am I doing here? Like I wasn't happy in my job, and it was just all these things that were really overwhelming, and I had to find ways to deal with it and to feel like connected to myself and to my place. And so I found these guys. These are futbolistas. They're part of a network of teams, left-wing football throughout the country, across the continent rather. And the idea is it's anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist soccer. And it's a lot of people who are educators, who work in social justice, kind of just in all different areas. A lot of artists, definitely a lot of artists in the group. Some of you might recognize people in the picture. This was one of my first photos with them. It was probably 6 months into playing with them. And it was really important for me actually this day because that was the day I bought my cleats. Because I had been going out for 6 months wearing just like my running shoes. And some of the people, they remember that and still tease me for it. Yeah, you used to come out in tennies. So, but this was the day I had brand new shoes. And I was like, that was like my commitment to doing that. And so they play every Sunday. Most of the year it's in the morning, and during summer we'll play in the evening. So it's every Sunday, rain or shine. We have, like I mentioned, there's a network of teams, and we can go to other cities and play there for another place on Sundays. But part of the reason, going back to the places where I felt like I could forget the world beyond, was also just like I felt connected to my body. When I played softball, it was one of the ways I felt strong. Like it was one of the ways I really felt like empowered. But it was also like a source of huge heartbreak because, again, going back to the context and kind of like the struggles you have to deal with, I didn't realize until I was well into my 20s that I dealt with a lot of like racism and people who like these powers beyond myself while I was playing softball who didn't care how good a player I was, who didn't care about how much effort I gave, that were trying to kind of keep me from advancing within that. Which not to say I was like the top, most top player ever, but it was a chance for me to realize that it didn't matter how hard I worked, that it didn't always get me something. So when people talk about, we hear about this, and especially I think as women, we see a lot of this right now. They talk about sexual harassment and people's careers getting, having a chance to bloom, and recognizing that we have these like structural oppressions that we've had to deal with, and trying to take care of ourselves within all of that. So this was a chance for me. Like, it felt like it was like a rebirth, finding these folks. And one of the things I really appreciated is kind of the unofficial model of all left-wing teams is to change the world, we have to change the way we play. So we're not just playing soccer out there. And when we are just playing soccer, that's the moments where we have to recalibrate. In order to do this, we have to have some agreements. And this is where I think I've learned a lot. This is where I realized, like, when I go out into the world, this really means something, that we are changing the world by changing the way we play. That the agreements are actually what I've managed to be able to, how I've been able to take care of myself, how I've been able to conduct myself in different ways that honor kind of like who I am and what I need out of everything, really. So a few of the things that we do is we start every game with an opening circle. It's kind of why I had us go around doing introductions. Is we have an opening circle. It's a chance for us to check in. We always ask, the first thing we always ask is who's here for the first time. So we ask, how many people are here for the first time? Welcome. Awesome to have you, and it's awesome that you're here for this. It gives us a chance to set the intention. So the agreements I'm talking about here, we actually always repeat them, even if we have no one new. Even if it's all people that are like, I know you, but we're all going to repeat this. What our values are, restating our values, reaffirming those values. So this is actually a photo of one of the opening circles, and it's actually from one of our events where we have folks come from out of town. This was last spring, so it was a really big opening circle, which usually take about close to an hour to get through. Because oftentimes we'll ask another question. It'll be like your name, your gender pronoun, and then like sometimes it'll be as superficial as like what's your favorite ice cream flavor to like a Mother's Day, like who was a woman in your life who really had an impact on you, or like a moment that you remember, something like that. People will get really deep with that. So I think what I've gotten out of that is just like the idea of like pausing and breathing, taking a moment to kind of reset. I really love this GIF. I remember coming across it and being like immediately you're like, right? But I always think of this like as a moment, because usually when we arrive, we get there and we're always late. Always running late. We actually, that's another one of our agreement has to do with like not being late, but I didn't put that in here. It gives us a chance, even though we're chatting and everything, we get there, we come together, we do like the labor clock where you're like real slow and then you get faster, and then get started. But it gives also a chance to like worry only about what you can control in that moment where you're pausing and breathing. I think especially. So over here on the wall, for folks who didn't get a chance to contribute, and if you want to, there's a few Post-its here if you want to get up at some point and add something. We have, how do you know you need to take a break? And then, what do you do for self-care? And I think just knowing how you're feeling, and that's part of why I asked that, is like, one word for how you're feeling when we did introductions. Knowing how you're feeling, recognizing that feeling, and then trying to figure out what to do with it next, I think is half the battle. I know it is for me. I actually had a moment at the end of this summer where I had to really I had to pause and breathe. Because I realized, I was like, summer seemed to go by really fast. What was going on during summer? And I realized I actually been feeling really down for much of the summer. And it kind of was like a little bit of a hermit, and not really going out and doing much because I had suffered like a few professional and personal disappointments, And they would come in threes every time. It was like, it'd be like 2 or 3 days in succession where it was like, I got another email. And so I like recognized in that moment, I had been feeling down. Okay, what do I do about this? Like, how do I like keep myself from falling into like what felt like it had been a hole for a little while? So yeah, I like that with the opening circle is a chance or opening circle in scare quotes, It's a chance to kind of to check in with yourself, check in with others, hopefully too. He warned us this was going to happen. Make sure I learned how to use the remote first.
Nice.
All right, there we go. The other thing is the score is always 2-2. We really take that like super seriously. We talk about the 2-2 spirits. It's not 0-0, it's not 1-1. And I think the reason I went 2-2 is it sounded better. Because it sounds like you're also like working as a team in a sense. So score is always 2-2. We do this not only on Sundays when it's a pickup game and anyone who comes, anyone at any skill level shows up, and it's just us. There isn't really any stakes, but we also we have a few league teams. So the photo of me at the beginning was actually from one of our league games. We play in competitive leagues against teams who do not have our values necessarily. But we always, like, every time we score a goal, we always shout out 2-2 to remind ourselves we're playing in this style, we're playing in this manner. It's about the journey, not the destination, right? So it's really rethinking and reframing how you're thinking about your goals, about what you're trying to accomplish, and setting alternative goals. That's actually one of the things we do. Like, what are some alternative goals we have for today? You know, we'll get together with our team and decide, like, we're gonna pass this many times before we try to score a goal, or we're actually not gonna focus on scoring a goal. We're just gonna focus on possessing the ball. There's different things we think about. We want to make sure that the women transgender non-conforming folks get the ball more often than not, or we're going to make sure that we're not just playing cis dudes in the middle, you know, in the key positions, like in the center mid position or something. So finding ways to kind of re-envision like what it means to succeed, redefining success is really what it comes down to. And I'll explain the photo in a second. But really thinking about how failure is relative. And again, going back to the idea of like, within capitalism, it's like a rat race, right? Like, if I get something, it means you don't have something. The zero-sum game, that we're always competing. Patriarchy is competition as well. So trying to really think beyond that, rather than like what are our restrictions, what we've been confined to as well. Comparing yourself to others, it's the worst, right? This is usually what happens at the stage, is like you see someone, and I get caught in that too, as much like as supportive and as happy as I am for like a number of my friends who've like published books and done like really cool things, and I'm really happy for them, and then I get over here and I'm like, oh, but what am I doing? And I don't know, blah blah blah, and like I'm sure, and you know, there's chuckles here because everyone's like, yeah, I totally do that all the time, right? Because then you start reflecting on like, I'm not doing enough, right? Like I'm not making it as far as this person when, you know, circumstances are completely different. So the photo here is actually, I put this up next to my desk, and I took inspiration from Women Who Submit, but I put Writer Who Submits on it. And I give myself a sticker every time I submit something. Kind of like in charge of school. I actually lost my sticker, so there should be more up there. I gotta go back to the Dollar Tree and get some. Yeah. It's just a piece of paper, just like construction paper and some stickers. So, and it's like rewarding myself for even submitting, which is why like you guys are even here today, right? Is to just get the work out there. And so I think that's, for me personally, I think that's half the battle is just like just getting the work out there and like try it, you know, like taking that leap. So redefining success for yourself, not necessarily for others, right? You don't have control over that for other people. For yourself, though, I think having a 2-2 spirit with yourself. Another value we have is we play to each other's skill level. So basically, we try to make sure that everyone gets a touch on the ball. I mentioned that when I went out there, I hadn't played any soccer. I had only played like in PE, and that was it. I was like, I'm good. I'll watch soccer. I like watching soccer, but I don't want to play. But we always tell people that if you are more skilled than someone else, you don't want to take advantage of them. You don't want to just like, you know, take the ball away, because maybe they're not going to come back. They came out here because, you know, they appreciate our values or for whatever reason they came. But we want to make sure everyone gets a touch on the ball. Hoping to build up and not break people down. And the other side of it is also not patronize them, right? So you're just like, when they have it, it's like, don't just like step aside so they can get right past you. Like, give them a chance to like develop their skills. And the way I see it, you're still learning, right? You keep trying, keep failing, right? And not think about it as failing so much as you're succeeding in a succeeding in getting your work out there, even though maybe you're not getting it published. You're succeeding in saying no, right? Like one of the people who up there, what do you do for self-care? They said they say no. I really appreciated that one. Push yourself when you're ready. Pushing yourself when you're ready. Maybe you're not ready right now, but maybe you're ready tomorrow. And then if you're stuck, trying something new. One of the things I do, and I guess this kind of also relates to defining success, is when I get stuck, so like my writer's block, it just, like, I want to edit while I'm writing. I'm so bad at this. And I always feel better when I stop trying to edit while I'm writing, but I forget that every time. Like, it's just like a broken record. Like, oh, this is terrible. It's like, just write the terrible crap, you know? But when I get stuck, one of the things I discovered, I don't even know how it happened, but I think I was very frustrated one night, and I was like, I had my journal in front of me. I was like, I'm going to listen to Hamilton. And what I did was I just had my journal open, and I just scribbled the whole time. I was writing lines as they were singing them, and I was drawing terrible pictures, and I was just like, it was just a bunch of nothing on this page, it felt like. But it felt really good because it was like I was both listening to it, and then I was also like creating at the same time, and kind of just like getting a lot of like those cobwebs out. I've done that with TV shows and with movies and stuff. So in those moments where I feel like I need to put pen to page, but like I'm just like, I freaked myself out in some way. It's like finding another way to kind of just keep it moving, keep the process going, and recognizing I'm still learning my way through it. Maybe I have that MFA next to my name, but I'm like still learning as a writer. And we're still learning, right? Like, I think a lot of you probably follow people like, you know, big name writers on Twitter and stuff like that who talk about how like they're, you know, how can I possibly write today or something like that. And that's always so helpful for me to see someone like, say like Roxane Gay or something, who's like, you know, who's completely blown up over the last few years and is also like, oh, writing's terrible, I'm gonna watch TV, right? So understanding you're still learning and being gentle with yourself about that. Another value we have, no trash talk. No trash talk unless you know the person or it's funny. That's usually what we say. That's our asterisk next to it. And someone's got to yield on 50-50 balls. So in soccer, a 50-50 ball is when two players have an equal chance of getting the ball. Oftentimes when you watch professional soccer, they like run into each other, they slam into each other. That's often how people get hurt. For us, someone's got to yield. And there's a couple of things we don't want people to get hurt. But the other thing is like nothing so dire that we need to just like go head on like that. It's really dealing with some of the uglier sides of soccer when we talk about this. And the main thing also is another thing part is disengaging before someone gets hurt. That you don't need to get hurt, that person doesn't need to get hurt. And if nothing else, take care of yourself, right? That we're not necessarily caretaking for the other person, which hopefully you are thinking about them as well, but it's taking care of yourself in that moment. So I think disengaging, enforcing boundaries, re-energizing. One of the things I did recently for myself is I deleted Facebook from my phone. Yeah. I would get lost in it, and it's just when you're in there and you're scrolling through and you're seeing people who are mad about things, and then you see people who are like talking about, like they went out somewhere and you're like, why didn't they invite me? And you get the FOMO too, you have fear of missing out. And it's just like, I was losing time doing that. I was like, what am I doing? It was making me more anxious, and so finally deleted it, hence delete Jeff. And kind of enforcing a boundary for myself that was healthy for me. That was something I needed to do, and really paying attention to like how much time I was spending on my phone. And then really one of the bigger things we always kind of usually the last one we talk about is anyone can stop play if we're not meeting our agreements, if we're not living up to our agreements. It's really to check egos and to recalibrate, especially, and we always say, you know, if you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself, these are the people over here. A few people raise their hands and say, like, I'm happy if you want to do it for you, to stop the game. So I think a big part is reaching out and trusting your community, knowing that you've got other people there and they've got your back. It's one of my favorite moments in the World Cup, the last World Cup. So reaching out to your community, trusting your community when you need it, when you need to talk to someone, when you need to, whether it's having someone with your work or just leaning upon them for you know, social activities, for chisme, for gossip. The other part of it is losing the dead weight. So the people who don't support you in the ways you need them to, or kind of are operating in the opposite way of kind of like discouraging you, right? So a couple of of things I'll mention with this. I already mentioned that Stephanie and we have lunch once a week. So it's a little bit of like community on campus because we both work at Cal State LA. So that's really nice to have like another writer who's got a day job working there and kind of bouncing ideas off. She brings me like issues of the Atlantic and stuff like that. So that's really nice to have that. Another one is a few people, I think, in this room too. There's a few writers on the east side who go out for food in SGV. About once a month, and we get together. We don't even really talk shop very much. It's a lot of like talking crap and like Chisme and stuff, but also just like communing with each other over really good food that doesn't cost very much, and having folks there and seeing what they're up to and like how we can like help each other out and everything. So really knowing like who's around and keeping each other accountable in different ways, I think, to making sure that they're coming out and they're taking care of themselves, that you're coming out and you're taking care of yourself as well. And then also I always want to mention folk therapy is wonderful. Health, like mental health, physical health, spiritual health, like keeping on that path.
What was the name of the restaurant?
I can give that to y'all later. What was that?
The restaurant where you guys meet.
Oh, there's different places. We just look for them on. Oh, in the SGV, the San Gabriel Valley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a good question. So yeah, so those are your agreements, and that's kind of what I've like extrapolated from them, and kind of like wanted to share with you guys. So moving over here to what's on the wall. It's kind of like giving a chance for, I guess, more of a discussion if anyone wants to contribute to it, but I was actually going to come over here and grab a few of them. So we have, how do you know you need to take a break? And what do you do for self-care? So how do you know you take a break? We've got, I'm on the verge of tears is one of them. I avoid or delay drinking water. I am so bad at that. Yeah, bring them on over. Is there anyone who wants to actually, before I like keep reading them, is there anyone who wants to like talk about what they've put up here? How do I know I need to take a break? Huizache.
I'll do it. I'm the one who's always on the verge of tears. So, oh, so sweet. Into it. So good. No, my eyes are always wet now because when I don't get a lot of sleep, I have something triggered the insomnia. Either it's the fires or it's Trump or a combination. So I wake up at 11, 1, and 3. And so I don't get enough sleep, and then there's a lot of work that's happening right now, and a lot of money on that work. I work for some doctors, and we have a grant to like save lives. And I'm like, oh, that shit's real. We have money to save lives. So how do we spend it? And then I'm like, also, I haven't written a poem in a long time. Okay, I should probably get to one of those. So I know I need to take a break when I'm just like, my eyes are very wet and I'm not acknowledging them. So it's a natural kind of moisture. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, are those tears? Okay, let's stop. So this is far beyond when I know I need to take a break. But the tear will come. And then what do I do is the no. I'm the one who says no. I've hurt many feelings lately because I used to be very engaged in the community, and now I'm like, can't do it. Nope, won't do it. Stop calling me, blocking you, things like this. But it helps me to sleep in without guilt because I don't have to go. And also I can create my own schedule for living and not someone else's schedule for my living. So I don't have to live towards other people's expectations. But yeah. It's not a loud no, it's like a gentle soft. Something like that.
I feel like it doesn't have to be like a loud no. It's just like the fact that you said it.
Yeah. Just walking and I can't reach me again. Yeah.
Anyone else want to share theirs? Yeah.
So I get like the avalanche of like things rolling through my brain, and like I get breathless when I get overwhelmed. Like, oh my god! And then there's this, and then there's this, and this, and this, and like the to-dos are just firing so hard in my head, and I'm like, and so mindful breathing has been my key this year. Like, oh, I need to stop and just breathe, and so I'll classroom, I'll breathe with students at the start of the class, or at home, I'll just go and lay down and just focus on breathing for a while, and it just resets my whole.
Are we sharing how do we know we need to take a break for the second part?
Both of them, actually. I think everyone's kind of been talking about how they deal with it.
So the mental exhaustion, I just get tired, just the thinking of whatever's going on. So I just feel tired, and I used to beat myself up. I think more about I'm being lazy or something. Just take a nap. In terms of what I do for self-care, I agree with a lot of the stuff, and that was up there, saying no, dancing, stuff like that. But I think one of the main ones is allowing myself to follow my own interests and intuitions. I feel like I would find myself fighting against other people's recommendations, especially stuff that does help in some way, but doesn't get at the root, in terms of following what stimulates me. So say yoga and stuff, whatever's really popular. I'm yeah, it's okay, but it's I'm still not. I'm avoiding what I'm actually interested in. So there's a different thing. There's the one thing that helps with what takes away maybe the wounded feeling or something, but it doesn't address what stimulates me.
I really appreciate that you brought that up, because even when I was putting this together, I think of a lot of times, I mentioned having gone to that workshop at work, or the session at work that talked about self-care, and it was all you were talking about very specific things to do. I was that doesn't work for me, that doesn't work for me. And so that's kind of the approach I took, was to talk about these general things, right? And really you gotta find what's gonna work for yourself, right? That maybe yoga is gonna be good for someone else, and maybe something else works for you, or vice versa. And finding knowing your own interests and what really does help you out. So like Shaka said, saying no, a gentle no, is helpful. Anyone else want to share theirs?
Well, if I could add on to that, I want to say, if you're in the process of finding out your interests or what works for you, there may become a time in your life where you have to shift. If you have a chronic injury, if you have a disability, what worked for you before, you may not be able to do now, and don't let that add to your stress. Try to be kind to yourself if you have to adjust for those things, because that's something I've had to do several times in my life, and I find that sometimes I'm it just adds to my feeling of needing to take a break. Why can't I go lift a gazillion pounds at the gym? Well, I can't. My knee just doesn't do that anymore. So, be gentle with yourself as you're finding what works for you.
Well, and if anyone's watching, they want to offer in their own things. So that's why we did this beforehand, is to give folks online, if they're watching from afar, to offer up some of their own self-care practices, and also what you need to do to take a break. I'm gonna move on to the next part. I was gonna have us kind of do a little bit more writing here, but I have another writing thing after this. But I encourage you, if you haven't contributed to it, we can still do it today while you're here. To the other ones on the board, and there's very detailed ones as well. Take a picture or something and go home with it. But hopefully you are thinking about those things. You are identifying. Oh yeah.
I just want to add one really big thing, because right now I'm going through the biggest question of self-care, because my mother's very ill, and I'm trying to keep her at home by myself, and she lives alone. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is to ask for help. Seek help from others, not, in any capacity.
Not carrying the entire load on your own back, especially as much as you possibly can to work together, folks. How's that been working?
Oh, I'm dead. It's, yeah. I'm glad I'm here. This is part of it, getting away. And, life will prioritize your self-care, whether you like it or not. It will come in, especially. I'm older, but when you get older, more and more of that happens, I think.
Yeah. God, asking for help. I think that's one of my biggest weaknesses. It's one of my challenges for myself, is to be able to just say. And I mentioned during the summer feeling really down, I was I could have just been oh hey, you guys want to hang out or do whatever, but it was it's recognizing that, right, in those moments, that it doesn't, because you get so wrapped up in what you're doing and helping your mother, or taking care of yourself in other ways, or other people in other ways. I think especially anyone who has children deals with this very often, and we don't for women, we're expected to be be taking care of the home, taking care of the children. As advanced as things have gotten, as progressive as our families may be, like there's still this even my I have a cat now. Anyone who follows me on Instagram knows. He walked into my life, literally walked into my house during the summer, so that was a really great development. I hadn't had a cat since I was like 12 years old, and but he recognizes me as like his person in the house, not my boyfriend, and which is really funny. So he follows me into the bathroom, and then he waits for me to open the door in the morning because he's indoor outdoor. And so it's interesting, like even how that's developed with the cat, which it could be a different way, I'm sure, because he's a cat, not a kid. But anyway, so self-care practices. I'm glad to hear kind of just especially that folks have their own understanding kind of like what works for yourself. I think is really important in particular. So I'm gonna pass out. This is actually done this before and made a few edits. I don't think I have enough for everyone, so a couple of you might share about 15 of them. And then I'm gonna I'll just bring it up on the board. I remixed what is an essay in this book here. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, Revolutionary Mothering. It's an anthology. It is amazing. It's about all kinds of mothering. So I'm not a mother myself, but I got so much out of this. And this is an essay. Yeah, so here's the book. Revolutionary Mothering, Love on the Front Lines. And it was absolutely amazing to me. And this is one of the earlier essays in it, called The Creative Spirit by June Jordan. And it's actually pretty long. And what I did was I went in and kind of remixed it and really pulled what I, let me make this a little bigger so you can see. Boom. One of the things I really liked about it is she talks about the creative spirit. It's about it is about self-care, and it's about also really kind of understanding what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to do for ourselves and for our communities. And for me, I know as a writer, a lot of what I do is I'm really thinking about the generations who come after me, especially in this political climate. Just like this euphemism everyone's been using, it's like who's coming after us and how are things going to be for them. So I'll go ahead and read, follow along, and get a chance to discuss. And we got a little bit of a writing prompt at the end here. Oh, of course, right in this moment it goes on. Let's try this. Oops, I think it went off completely. I think we'll be all right. Did make paper copies. All right, let's see if this gets back on. I think it's coming. All right, The Creative Spirit remixed. So this is from June Jordan originally. I have a copy of myself. Oh, there we go. Love is life force. The creative spirit is nothing less than love made manifest. Love, the essential nature of all that supports life. Love opposed to the death of the dream. Love opposed to the delimiting of possibilities of experience. When we run on love, when we move and change and build and paint and sing and write and foster the fulfillment of our lives and the fulfillment of other lives that look to us for help, for protection, for usable clues to the positive excitement of just being alive. We make manifest the creative spirit of the universe, a spirit existing within each of us and yet persisting infinitely greater than the ultimate capacities of any one of us. Love is life force. Tiger lilies in a field will bloom, wild as they grow, exactly on the same day as wild tiger lilies several miles away. There is an orderliness, a perpetual inclination to grow, to become manifest from an invisible beginning, perpetual impulse to expand and to transform. That is the essence of being, the irreducible purpose of being. And because we coexist on a planet defiled by habits opposite to love, the task of surviving, the task of providing for the survival of those who are not as strong as I am, is a political undertaking. Enormous reversals and revisions will have to be envisioned and pursued for us to survive the destructive traditions of our species, somehow and fast. We'll have to deal with power. We will have to make love powerful. We have to empower the people we love so that they can bloom in their own place and time like the tiger lilies growing beautiful and free. I know of nothing more important, more difficult, more purely loving than the nurture of children, as a parent, as a teacher, as an artist, wishing to serve them well. Children are the ways that the world begins again and again. Love is life force. I want to say to children, let us look at tiger lilies blooming to their own astonishment and learn to cherish their own form and orderliness and freedom for our own. I want to say to children, tell me what you think and what you see and what you dream so that I may hope to honor you. I want these things for children because I want these things for myself and for all of us, because unless we embody these attitudes and precepts as the governing rules of our love and of our political commitment to survive, we will love in vain and we will certainly not survive. The creative spirit is nothing less than love we manifest. I hope we can make love powerful, otherwise there will be no reason for hope. Love is life force. Anyone have any thoughts?
I also just took a bite of something with peanut butter in it, so sorry. Once we got to the point of talking about specifically, I know of nothing more important, more difficult, more really loving than the nurture of children. For myself, I was a preschool teacher and a nanny for a long time, and even before that, I was babysitting from the time I was 13. And more recently, just moving to LA a few months ago, this is the first time in my life that I haven't been working directly with children in any sort of capacity. And I realized what a large part of my identity is to be able to be in a position to work with children in that capacity. And I've been meditating a lot lately on how often I hear people talk about the ways in which they feel empowered because they've been able to say no to people, to children, instead of focusing on the ways that we're able to say yes to them and encourage them. And I realized that's something that I've carried with me through, and something that I also sort of miss, being able to be an advocate for, I guess, in a direct sense. So I really appreciate that specific.
I'm thinking about how traditionally women have been the mothers and the nurturers, and this piece speaks to the richness of that, and how important it is to expect and encourage men to be part of that wealth, because that's how we think more conscientiously about the world we want to leave.
The part about because we coexist on a planet defiled by habits of opposite to love, the task of surviving, the task of providing for the survival of those who are not as strong as I am is what I'm undertaking. That's really powerful, and it just makes me think of everything you've already said, and I'm just so appreciative of everything you brought here today, because it's like, it's a reminder of the things I've never even really thought of, and then we are, like what you were saying about softball, I know that I've had that experience so many times, I didn't even know that I was being treated in a certain way. I try to come to spaces with love and to work hard and not even realizing that there's other things around me that are against that. I just appreciate these reminders and this space.
I like on the first page in the middle, that kind of larger stanza where it says, there is an orderliness, a perpetual inclination to grow, to become manifest from an invisible beginning, perpetual impulse to expand and to transform. As many of you know, I quit my job in June, and I'm in graduate school, and it's kind of one of those things that there's not a lot of orderliness to my life anymore, and that was something that I was known for, like that structure and that scheduling and that routine. But I feel like in that chaos, I been able to grow, and there are a lot of things about my life that are transforming now, and it's uncomfortable. And I think sometimes when we get into routines and we get into those really comfortable places, like things are going along, it's like sometimes you got to shake it up a little bit. And I think that in and of itself is an act of self-care. You kind of take yourself out of that routine to make yourself, to challenge yourself, and I think that's important.
So I really appreciate kind of your thoughts on this, and to kind of bring it back around to kind of the beginning a little bit. So later in the essay, she, because like I said, I pulled parts of it out. I couldn't find a way to put this into kind of like this remix, because it was clear, like as I was putting it together, kind of what the themes were. But this was also really important. It speaks to kind of part of what she talks about. She says, "It does not surprise me that when grown-ups encounter a special friend or lover whom they really want to cherish, they will often enough head for the children's section of a bookstore. Mm-hmm. There they will look for still another copy of The Little Prince or for Winnie the Pooh. That in doing so, we say, I care about you, I love you, and because I love you, I think about you. I think about what may hurt you or what may make you happy, what may make you feel ugly or small, and what may make you feel competent, interesting, and safe." So on one hand, it's like we create with the children and the most vulnerable of this world in mind, and on the other, we create for the children within ourselves. So really thought about this. I want these things for children because I want these things for myself. So take a few minutes and ponder this. If you want to engage in a little bit of a writing prompt here. Write a letter to yourself as a child about the things you want for yourself. She talks about. Give about 5 or 10 minutes. Do 5?
underline maybe a couple of key phrases that you really like, that really jump out at you. Or highlight. Even if it's just a word. Anyone want to share any of those?
I want to share something about what you said. It actually made me tear up, the thing you read about going to the children's section. Because my honey and I met 15 years ago this December. And I think it was on our 1 or 2 or 3 month anniversary, I bought him a Goldilocks book. Like in the children's section, hardcover. And like the whole thing was like, you're just right for me. And I found it last week when I was looking for stuff for the makeshift archives. So I went through like every box that I own, and I was like, "Hey, I found your Goldilocks books in the garage." So I'm gonna take it out and I'm gonna read it. So I don't know. I just love that idea of that love and kindness as if addressing a child. You know, it's much needed in self-care. Thanks.
Anyone else want to share a piece of what they wrote?
If you're just
If you want to, yeah. You don't have to.
So this is like from my 6-year-old self. So you didn't give an age in it. I thought it was a 6-year-old. So it says, I want you to have a place to grow, to move, to dance, to throw around. A place so open and expansive. A place that you could reach and touch the white fluffy clouds, where you can pull the moon and stars down and hold them in your hand. Where the colors are so bright and vivid. A place where you can feel free, where you can inhale colors. I want you to laugh often, to feel carefree, to not feel burdened, to grow a pair of wings, your favorite color, so you could use them to fly, but also to protect yourself.
Kind of much your mind, but it's a little bit maybe more on the start off on the negative side. I kind of miss the thing about the things you want, but I feel like it's still applicable because I see it. I sub, and I do still see it in some of the students that I work with, which is a lot of Latino youth. So this, I don't mean to be totally appreciate what you are showing and stuff, but this might be a little bit more on the negative side. I want those people to know that my people aren't stupid. How do they think their accent sounds when? How did they think their accent sounds when speaking Spanish? Do they not realize that good grammar doesn't mean critical thought? Of course, I'm not going to focus on someone's spelling and grammar and such things as the final indicator of anything really meaningful. But what about music? That's what I want to focus on. Yeah, I still see that a lot since I work with the negative self-image taken from popular media.
Negatively about how they speak.
Negatively just about their intelligence. But yeah, I think a lot of times people, whatever. I mean, it's a lot of discussion.
I love accents.
I'm going to read a section. I want you to walk in the sunlight and smile at a butterfly. I want you to have that smile and that butterfly in your pocket for when you feel down. I don't want you to always feel down or angry or scared. I wish I could help you be less angry. The world has so much love in it, though I know it doesn't always feel like it. Seek out those people who want to put more love in your life. Seek out those people who want to show you kindness because you deserve love and kindness. Try not to obsess over those people who don't appreciate your love. I know this is hard for you, but those people not loving you has nothing to do with your own worthiness of love. You can't make someone love you, and trying to will only bring you pain. Let go of those people. Wish them well and wish to never see them again. It's okay. It's okay to never see them again.
You don't pause the folks who shared. Like something. So that's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for coming and for participating and everything. And I hope that brought something to you and kind of gave you something to think about in your own work. And I hope you take that prompt. As I was writing it, I was like, oh God, what am I going to put together here? And I was like, oh, I got to see something with this one because I just. And like I said, if you don't have this book or if you can find it in your library or something, I really recommend it. It's just like I love the idea. The back. It's called Revolutionary Mothering, and like it's just about all types of mothering. It's just like it's amazing to me, and it's just got great poetry and essays and stuff in it. But that one actually, it's a June Jordan essay, and it was never published in her lifetime. It was actually published in this book. So, she's talking about children's literature, and so it's not just about children's literature. As you can see, it's about so much more than that. So,
when did she write it?
What was that?
When did she write it?
It was like 1979 or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was somehow the editors, they were able to, they got from her archive, they got permission to print it in her archive, or from the archive. So, yeah, so I hope you take that home and like ponder it a little bit more and think about your own kind of self-care practices. I think a lot about it is, you know, a lot of times it's just, it's taking care of the child and yourself. Cause that's a lot of times who really, it's what I mentioned earlier on like trauma and pain and stuff, and that's, you know, a lot of times it's from that whether it's childhood or kind of just like it reaches that child in you and carry it with you. So, thank you so much, and